Ok, hola, ¿cómo están? Bueno, como les habíamos dicho, tenemos el honor de tener a Ellen y Steve Levine. We have the privilege to have today Ellen and Steve Levine, like we were telling you 1 month we met the last time. Y bueno, queremos presentarlos. Steve y Ellen son uno de los pioneros en el campo de la terapia de artes expresivas. Ellos fueron los fundadores de un programa de terapia de artes expresivas en Toronto, y también junto con Paolo Canil fundaron el European Graduate School en Suiza, ¿no? donde siguen enseñando hasta ahora. Ellos han planeado también una manera de presentarse para que les puedan contar lo que han venido haciendo y lo que van a hacer ahora con ustedes. Ambos han escrito muchos libros en el campo, que nosotros ya les hemos mandado también, ¿no?
Quería decir también que, bueno, personalmente Steve y Ellen han estado muy cerca a nosotros en este camino, fueron nuestros profesores en Suiza. Conocí a Ellen y a Steve hace muchos años en Toronto, donde ellos viven, y gracias a ellos es que yo me acerqué también a IGS. Así que bueno, han sido profesores, creo que tienen mucha experiencia, muchísima experiencia, muchos años en este camino, y bueno, maravilloso tenerlos, ¿no? Por cuestiones del trabajo ahora online tan cerca, ¿no? Esto no hubiese podido ser posible, me parece, de otra manera.
Sí, ellos nos han acompañado desde los inicios de TAE Perú también, ¿no? Desde que fundamos TAE Perú. Perú cumplió 15 años, y creo que Steve y Ellen han ido a Perú como unas 10 veces, sin exagerar, tal vez, o estoy exagerando, no sé.
12, 13.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, there was another man who came, but he
I know people are coming and then disappearing. There he is again. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they are coming. They will
Yeah.
come.
Okay. I think we just go on, you know, let it happen.
Why don't you begin, Ellen?
Okay. So just those are some of the things about me. I'm
Don't forget to leave lots
I
of
know, yes.
Yeah.
I want to say like a couple of sentences and then I will give it to Jose. I think about me, maybe a little bit of background of me. I trained initially as an art therapist. This training in the beginning when I was young, in my early 20s, was as an art therapist from a psychoanalytic perspective. And then I was also working on my doctorate in the university within the theory of psychoanalysis. And I became interested in working with children. So I did another analytic training in child psychotherapy. And then began did a master's of social work. So this is my sort of academic, more training background, academic background, and worked for more than 30 years in a clinical setting in a child and family treatment center in Toronto, doing as a social worker, but doing working with the arts and therapy, and bringing in my students from the training program to the clinic to work with me through the arts. So, yeah.
Okay, so, entonces ella dice que va a decir algunas cosas sobre ella misma. Ellen, ¿no? Empezó en sus años 20, ¿no? Se formó como arteterapeuta desde una perspectiva psicoanalítica. Hizo su doctorado desde la perspectiva de la teoría como psicoanalista. También ha trabajado como niños y hizo un entrenamiento de psicoanálisis con niños. Y tiene también una maestría de trabajo social. Trabajó durante 30 años en una clínica con niños en Toronto, con las artes y supervisando a los alumnos del Instituto de Toronto para que fueran a practicar con ella en la clínica.
And I would say that one of the things I have been working on and thinking about for a long time is the encounter between psychoanalysis and the expressive arts. And I made that encounter myself personally at a certain point in my life. I never trained as an expressive arts therapist, but because through Steve, I guess, and his interest in it, I also became interested in it. And what emerged from that encounter for me was getting back to myself as an artist, I would say, primarily, and trying to combine being an artist with being a clinician.
Siempre ha estado en el encuentro, ¿no? Entre ser psicoanalista y las artes expresivas, ¿no? Ella nunca se entrenó como terapeuta de artes expresivas, sino que fue a través de Steve, ¿no? Que entró al mundo de las artes expresivas. Y el hecho de haber, digamos, trabajado como terapeuta de artes expresivas, o entrar al mundo de las artes expresivas, la conectó con su lado más artista.
So, Jose, just a question. You're writing everything in the chat, right?
Yes. Yes.
So can they just read it and you don't have to, or would you rather say it?
I think I also have to say it, yeah, because I might miss some parts. Yeah.
Okay. So I could go on, but I want to turn it over to Steve and then
no, it's about your work in expressive arts. Create and EGS. And
Okay. Well, what aspect of it do you think I should focus on?
What you've done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I've I don't know. We started we started a training program in Toronto, as Jose mentioned, in the early 90s. So that's been going on too for 30 years, and I've been teaching in the program and training people and also working. We started the program in Switzerland together with Paolo Knill and others to continue that training and teaching into more master's degrees and doctoral degrees. So I think at this point I'm not working in the clinic now, and I'm supervising people, training, teaching, doing, now that I'm online, I'm doing more therapy work, one-on-one with people all over the world, and supervision, and teaching seminars like this. So, and trying to go into the studio to paint. That's a challenge. That's a big challenge, to leave space for the arts in my own practice, you know. That's the thing. But Steve and I have also developed some work in clown theater. We've done a lot of training in that, and we have a clown couple that we perform, Max and Sadie, who are an old couple, a Jewish couple that have been married for maybe 80 years and, you know, have their relationship that they work with in the clown work. So that's been interesting and fun to do. And we performed a lot in Switzerland.
Ya, entonces Steve le pide que cuente más de lo que ha hecho en las artes expresivas. Ellos empezaron un programa de entrenamiento en Toronto en los años 90. Ella enseña desde allí en ese programa y también en EGS, donde hay maestrías y doctorados. Ahora no trabaja en la clínica, más bien supervisa el entrenamiento de otras personas. Hace más terapia individual y supervisión online y cursos online como el de ahora. Y trata de pintar más, eso es un desafío, darle espacio a la y también cuenta que ha desarrollado un trabajo de clown junto con Steve, que son una pareja que se llama Max y Sadie, judíos casados más de 80 años, y eso es algo que lo muestran siempre en EGS, ¿no? Esa pareja.
Just to finish, what I would say is at the core of my work, in everything, in the clinical work, in the thinking that I do, I think what's at the base of it is play and imagination. And I think I try to bring that into all the things that I do with people and in situations of difficulty, bringing in play.
Y antes de terminar, lo que está al centro de su trabajo, en trabajo clínicos, es el juego, ¿no? El juego y la imaginación está al centro de su trabajo y es lo que hace con las personas que se encuentran en dificultades.
Okay, Steve.
So I started off interested in university in Chinese thought, in Chinese and Japanese philosophy, particularly Taoism. And I was also writing a lot of poetry. And then I went on to study Western philosophy. So I'm really a philosopher. And my thesis was on Heidegger and his philosophy of art. So I tried to keep the art in the connection with philosophy, because for Heidegger, the arts are the ways in which, as he says, truth comes to take a stand in the world.
Empezó interesándole la filosofía china y la poesía a Steve, ¿no? Y luego estudió filosofía occidental y su tesis fue en Heidegger y su trabajo con las artes y sobre todo cómo la verdad puede tener un espacio en el mundo. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I was working as a philosopher, teaching in university, and I was writing poetry, and then I got very interested in therapy. Actually, I started therapy in university as a client or a patient, and I continued through most of my life. So I think you need to have a lot of experience as a patient or a client in order to be a good therapist. But I was doing a lot, so I was interested in therapy. I was also doing poetry, and then I got into performance, particularly theater performance. So I was doing poetry and theater in the arts. I was doing therapy. I trained as a therapist in the humanistic psychotherapy perspective. And I was teaching philosophy, phenomenology, and in particular, and also critical theory, critical social theory. And I was living in three different worlds: the world of the intellect of the university, the world of therapy, which had to do at that time primarily with feelings, and the world of the arts, which had to do with performance. And I was feeling very crazy in these three different worlds, that none of them understood each other at all.
Steve, stop.
Yeah. Ok, entonces trabajaba como filósofo y escribía poesía, me interesaba la terapia como paciente y tuve muchas experiencias como paciente y él considera que para ser un buen terapeuta tienes que tener también experiencias de haber pasado por diferentes terapias. También ha hecho teatro, se formó como dentro de la terapia humanista, enseñaba filosofía fenomenológica y teoría crítica. Entonces está en tres mundos: el mundo intelectual, el mundo de las emociones, de la terapia y el mundo de las artes.
Yeah, so I wanted to put them all together, and I decided I would study expressive therapy, as it was called then. It wasn't called expressive arts therapy, it was just called expressive therapy, at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, because it seemed like they were interested in all of these aspects of human life. And when I went there, I studied with Paolo Canil, who was one of the and Sean McNiff, who were the founders, basically, of expressive arts therapy. And that's when I really made a commitment to be in this field. And that was in the mid-'80s, I think 1985 and 86. So you tell me when to stop, Jose, otherwise I'll just continue.
Okay.
Yeah. Should I continue or do you want to stop?
You can continue.
Okay. So from there, in the mid-'80s, I came back to Toronto, and together with Ellen and another therapist, we started a training program, which still exists, called the Create Institute in Toronto. And then when Paolo Canil, who had been teaching at Lesley University, decided to go back to Switzerland and start a university, he invited us to be part of the founding team. So we started the program at European Graduate School in 1996. Yeah, and we've been involved in that ever since. And right now what I'm doing is mostly teaching, writing. I'm writing a lot. I'm doing some performance still. And also, some supervision. So that's my story.
Okay,
Was it?
okay, yes. Bueno, entonces su forma de unirlo la encontró en Leslie, ¿no? Estaba hablando de este mundo intelectual, de la terapia, las emociones y las artes, ¿no? Y cuando fue a Leslie, el programa en ese momento se llamaba terapia expresiva, en ese momento, ¿no? La terapia expresiva, y ahí junto con, bueno, con Paolo Canil y Jean Magnif, que eran los fundadores, empezó él a formar, a enseñar, a estar en ese equipo, ¿no? Eso fue alrededor de 1985, ¿no? Y ahí, cuando se dio eso, ahí él quiso comprometerse totalmente con el campo, como lo ha hecho, ¿no? Y bueno, luego cuando regresaron a Toronto, empezó el programa Create Institute, ¿no? Junto con Ellen en Toronto, que continúa. Y luego cuando Paolo Canil regresó a Suiza, en 1996, fueron los que fundaron la European Graduate School y han venido desde ahí enseñando en esa universidad, ¿no? Entonces, ahora actualmente lo que está haciendo, escribe muchísimo, está escribiendo bastante, hace performance y también está supervisando.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of my contributions to the field has been to try to understand what is the basis of our work, what is the foundation of our work. Because when I came into expressive arts therapy, there was not clear where we stood in the world and in the world of understanding. Because we didn't want to be like the creative arts therapies, which were grounded in psychology. And the creative arts therapies, separate therapies of art therapy, visual art therapy, dance therapy, music therapy, etc., they all began with a certain psychological framework, and they would interpret the art in terms of that framework. And what I was looking for was something that Sean McNiff talked about for many years, that they needed a therapy,
A theory.
a theory indigenous to art, a theory indigenous to art. So I tried to develop a way of understanding the work that would put the arts at the center. And that became the focus on this concept of poiesis, which I think Jose has talked to you about. And I think it's very important to understand what poiesis is. It's not just art making, but it's a certain conception of it. Initially, well, I'll stop there because that's a lot already. Yeah.
Ok. Entonces, al inicio, lo importante para él y el aporte que él dio es encontrar un fundamento al trabajo que estábamos haciendo, ¿no? No estaba, en los inicios no estaba tan claro el fundamento que le da un sentido a nuestro trabajo, ¿no? No queríamos estar anclados en un paradigma psicológico, ¿no? Es decir, todas las terapias creativas de esa época, en esos inicios, todas tenían un marco teórico psicológico que interpretaba, ¿no? El arte. Entonces, desde los inicios querían alejarse de esa concepción y más bien necesitaban una teoría, lo que Jean Magnif llamaba una teoría indígena. No sé si la traducción es indigenous to the art, no sé cuál será la traducción de indigenous to the art, tal vez sea algo así como una teoría propia al arte.
Yeah.
Y tratar de desarrollar algo que pusiera el arte al centro. Y ahí fue donde él empezó a desarrollar toda su teoría de poiesis, que creo que hemos hablado algo, ¿no? Todo el tema de poiesis, que ahora va a hablar un poco más. Okay.
So the word poiesis, Heidegger is really the one who brought the word back into current discourse. And originally, it referred to all kinds of art making in classical Greece. That's how they used the term. It could mean poetry in the narrow sense of written work or spoken work. And that was central for life in the cities of classical Greece and Athens and elsewhere, where the traditions of the culture were carried on orally through poets who would go from city to city and tell the stories of the great battles and the great myths, which were the foundation of the culture that they had. But when you think about it, I thought, well, what is this poiesis? You know, is it just art making? Well, actually, maybe it says something more fundamental. Maybe it's a word that refers to the human capacity to shape the world in relationship to your needs. You know, I think that's really important because human beings are not pre-adapted to any environment. It's a great thing. They can live anywhere in the world, and they can live in the desert or in the mountains or in the city or, they go on sea, then go in the air and go into space. But the difficulty is that they always have to make the world in which they live. So I see poiesis as a foundational concept for understanding human existence as world making, and always in relationship to the difficulties which we face and which we have to overcome. And that seemed to me to be a certain way of understanding our work, because it's not just that we say to people, go make art. You know, I mean, everybody says that who deals in the arts therapies. But we're saying that the arts give you a new perspective and a new way of understanding your existence in the world. They are ways of meeting difficulties that give you creative responses that you would not otherwise have. José.
Claro, Heidegger trajo esta palabra. En realidad, Heidegger fue el primero que la incorporó al discurso filosófico. En Grecia se habla de poiesis como la poesía escrita o hablada, ¿no? Y era central donde las tradiciones se transmitían oralmente, ¿no? Es decir, las grandes batallas, los mitos, eran transmitidas de manera oral en la Grecia clásica, ¿no? Entonces, cuando piensan en eso, cuando piensas eso es poiesis, tal vez es más que hacer arte, ¿no? Es decir, poiesis no solo significa hacer arte, ¿no? Sino tal vez signifique algo más, ¿no? Y es allí donde Steve plantea que poiesis estaría enmarcado dentro de la capacidad humana de moldear nuestras necesidades, ¿no? Esa capacidad humana de poder moldear nuestras necesidades. Es decir, nuestras necesidades no están adaptadas al ambiente donde vivimos, ¿no? El ser humano puede vivir en cualquier tipo de espacio, ¿no? En cualquier tipo de lugar, ¿no? Y la dificultad es que tenemos que, es decir, nuestro desafío es cómo podemos responder a las dificultades que nos enfrentamos en los diferentes lugares donde vivimos. Entonces, poiesis sería la capacidad, poiesis sería como una capacidad humana, ¿no? De cómo hacer mundo. Y así enfrentar las dificultades, ¿no? Cómo afrontar las dificultades, ¿no? Poiesis sería como la capacidad humana de afrontar estas dificultades que se presentan, ¿no? en el mundo, ¿no? Es una forma de entender, esto podría ser una forma de entender nuestro trabajo, ¿no? Es decir, nuestro trabajo no es solo pedir a la gente hagan arte, ¿no? No solo es eso, ¿no? Sino que decimos que las artes nos dan una nueva perspectiva a nuestra relación con el mundo.
Yes, I know you have talked about decentering. And what we mean by decentering is we move away from the reality around us, the everyday life in which we live, and we go into the imagination. The arts are disciplines of the imagination. And that, I think, is the essence of poiesis. Because in order to act in this way, you have to give up knowing and controlling what you are doing. You have to let it come. You have to respond to what is there in a new and appropriate way that perhaps can bring about something that fits, or you could say is beautiful, which you have an aesthetic response to. I think you may have talked about that concept. So what I really want to talk about now is how understanding therapy in this way, rather than from a, say, psychoanalytic point of view or even a Jungian point of view, we begin from the arts and the work of the arts and the place of the arts in human life, because I think they're essential to human existence, not just the fine arts, but popular arts as well. You know, people say, oh, I'm not an artist and I don't know anything about art. Meanwhile, they're listening all day long to music on their, iPhone or their computer. They go to the movies or they watch now television, and it's like we constantly are living in this world of the imagination. We just don't recognize it. So if psychotherapy then was understood in this way, it seemed to me that this concept could then be applied to other areas as well. And bienvenidos, Sergio.
Okay, Steve, keep going.
Yeah, and depending on where we found the difficulties in our lives, not only psychological difficulties, not only difficulties of emotional suffering, but also social suffering. So we started moving the arts and expressive arts into social change, the area of social change. And for a long time, Ellen had a program at the European Graduate School in expressive arts therapy and social change. And we edited a book called Art in Action, Expressive Arts Therapy and Social Change, which tries to include these concepts. So, and now we are in a different world. We are in a world where we are faced with great challenges and great suffering for all of humanity ecologically, because we have a climate crisis, we have a crisis of the environment, we have a crisis of our lives in the pandemic, and we can no longer focus only on our feelings. When I first studied psychotherapy, all anybody would ask as a therapist is, and what are you feeling now? What are you feeling now? It's important, yeah. But please believe me, there's a lot more to life than how you feel, and how you feel is also connected to the world in which you live.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do now is move into the area of our work, which is most needed, I think, right now, which is the field of ecology and the way to find a new way to be in the natural world and the world of the environment. And stop there.
También él habló del descentramiento, algo que hemos hablado, ¿no? Decimos que las artes nos dan una nueva perspectiva de nuestra relación con el mundo, ¿no? Y ya hemos hablado del descentramiento, y en el descentramiento nos vamos de nuestra realidad literal y accedemos a una realidad de la imaginación. Entonces las artes son la disciplina de la imaginación, esa es la esencia de poiesis. Dejar el control y responder a lo que está ahí. Y en esa respuesta a lo que está ahí, en esa respuesta a las dificultades, puede surgir algo bello. Y así tenemos una respuesta estética, que es lo que hemos hablado, ¿no? Como en este proceso de hacer poiesis surge en nosotros una respuesta desde nuestros sentidos, ¿no? Y entonces, por ahora él dice que quiere hablar de qué entiende la terapia de esta perspectiva más allá, o sea, es decir, cómo la terapia puede entender esta perspectiva, ¿no? Es decir, más allá de tener un marco teórico junguiano, un marco teórico psicoanalítico, cómo pueden las terapias beneficiarse de esta perspectiva estética de la que él está hablando, ¿no? Entonces, todas las artes, y no solo, o sea, es decir, la existencia humana se puede beneficiar de esto, de las artes, no solo las artes clásicas, sino en general de todas las artes, hasta las artes populares, ¿no? Algunas personas pueden decir que no están conectadas con las artes, pero sin embargo escuchan música, ven cosas en la televisión, ¿no? Es decir, vivimos un mundo donde la imaginación está presente, y ese es el vínculo para todos, ¿no? A través de la imaginación, ¿no? Entonces, también el tema de las artes en terapia fue cambiando y se movió no solo a las artes en terapia, sino también a las artes en cambio social, ¿no? Y hubo un programa, inclusive en EGS, que Ellen empezó, ¿no? Que tenía que ver con las artes expresivas y el cambio social, ¿no? Y también se ha publicado un libro donde Steve y Ellen son los editores, que se llama Art in Action, Arte en Acción, donde se hablan de estos conceptos, de cómo se está llevando esta noción de poiesis, esta noción de las artes expresivas al campo de la transformación humana, ¿no? Pero luego Steve habla de que ahora estamos en un mundo con muchos desafíos, ¿no? Muchos desafíos ecológicos. Hay una crisis del clima, ¿no? Estamos en una pandemia, ¿no? Y no solo nos podemos enfocar en nuestras emociones, ¿no? Es decir, siempre en la terapia te hablan, bueno, ¿cómo te sientes? ¿Cómo te sientes? Y Steve bromea, bueno, y dice, hay algo más allá de lo que estamos sintiendo nosotros, ¿no? Es decir, hay que también estar conectado con lo que ocurre en el mundo, ¿no?
And they're connected. The two are
Yeah, of course.
connected. The world affects us, Right now, I think there's a lot of fear and paranoia in the world, and because of the pandemic. Even the way you meet other people, if you're able to go outside, You don't even go outside, but if you go outside, you see people in the street and you wonder, are they my enemy? Will they make me sick? It changes everything, you know. So the inner world and the outer world are intimately connected. You can't look at one without looking at the other.
Ya, sí, todos están conectados, ¿no? Es decir, ahora nos movemos, es decir, el mundo de afuera y el mundo de adentro están conectados, ¿no? Y nos afectan, ¿no? Sí, mira ahora, ¿no? Puede haber mucho miedo, ¿no? Con la pandemia, cómo nos está afectando, ¿no? Se moviliza mucho el miedo, mucho la paranoia, podemos ver a alguien en la calle y nos entra será mi enemigo, no me va a contagiar. Entonces está haciendo hincapié en cómo el mundo de afuera también afecta el mundo de adentro y viceversa.
And, you know, the effect of human action is that the world around us is in a terrible condition. You know, if sometimes some of the students in Lima were the other day were saying how they feel that everything we do produces garbage, which is true. But I think we have to see the capacity to make things, whether they're garbage or beauty, it's the same capacity. We have to find our way to a way of living in the world that makes the world beautiful and that gives us pleasure. And I think that's what we're looking for.
Ya, sí, por ejemplo, el efecto de la acción humana, digamos, afecta, ¿no? Es decir, estuvo ahora hace poco dictando un curso, bueno, online con alumnos de Lima, en Perú, ¿no? Y cómo se hablaba de que el ser humano parece que lo que más produce es basura, ¿no? Y la misma capacidad que produce esa basura también produce belleza, ¿no? Entonces, ¿cómo podemos encontrar, el desafío es cómo poder encontrar una manera bella de vivir en el mundo, ¿no? Y que eso traiga placer.
Ellen,
Yeah.
you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I was just thinking when I ended my little talk about my background, I spoke about play and imagination. And I think what we're working with now, like Jose asked us to present what we're working on now. And I think what's happening now for both of us is that we're listening and we're hearing a call from the world. Something is calling to us from the world to respond. The world is calling, the earth is calling. It's needing some response, and it may be needing a response from us within our field as humans, as human beings. But the question for us is, how can our field of expressive arts respond now to this call, which is getting louder and louder, I feel.
Sí. Ella cuenta que al final de su pequeña introducción habló de cómo para ella es importante jugar en la imaginación, ¿no? Y que yo y Judith le pedimos que hablaran sobre qué es lo que están trabajando ahora ellos, ¿no? Y que ahora para ellos tenemos que escuchar, hay un llamado, ¿no? En el mundo, ¿no? Un llamado para responder. La Tierra nos está llamando, ¿no? Y necesita respuestas. Respuestas de nosotros, dentro de nuestro campo, ¿no? Con respuestas como seres humanos y respuestas dentro del campo de la terapia de artes expresivas también, cómo responder ese llamado que el mundo nos está dando, ¿no?
And what's exciting to me about our field is how much we emphasize the arts, play, and imagination. And so we must bring this to this call from the world, especially imagination. I think we need to find new ways to live on this planet, new ideas, new perspectives, new offerings.
Y lo importante es que lo que le emociona en nuestro campo es que podemos atraer a este llamado del mundo el juego, las artes y la imaginación, ¿no? Especialmente la imaginación, ¿no? Y traer nuevas formas de vivir en este mundo, ¿no? Nuevas formas que tengamos de ofrendar al mundo, ¿no? Y estar en este mundo.
So what we want to do with you in this very short time that we have together is to make some explorations, all of us, into this idea that the world is calling to each of us. Maybe you're hearing something from the world yourself, what is calling to you, and then the idea of responding to it. What could be a ways of responding to the call? So we'd like to today, we only have 1 hour and 45 minutes together, but what can we do? And Steve's going to lead first a body movement exploration, because that's one place to go to explore and discover is to the ground, which of the body. Then I'm going to give a short presentation of my own artistic responses to what's calling to me, and then we'll finish up with some group discussions and where do we go from here?
Yeah.
That kind of question. So that's kind of the basic structure for the rest of the time.
There'll be a break in the middle, don't worry.
Yeah.
La propuesta es cómo responder a este llamado, ¿no? Cómo responder al llamado del mundo que nos está dando actualmente, cómo podemos escuchar lo que el mundo nos está pidiendo y cómo podemos responder. Eso es la propuesta para hoy. Tenemos solamente 1 hora y 45 minutos. ¿Qué podemos hacer, no? Entonces, primero Steve nos va a guiar a través de una exploración con el cuerpo. El cuerpo es un lugar importante donde poder anclar, ¿no? Encontrar un anclaje a este llamado, a este proceso del llamado y la respuesta del mundo. Luego Ellen va a dar una pequeña presentación de su trabajo artístico, donde va a enseñarnos cómo ella está respondiendo a lo que el mundo la está llamando a ella, y luego vamos a terminar con una pequeña discusión.
Okay, so there are, let's see, 4, 8, 9, 10 people. Good. Okay, so what I'm going to ask, we're going to do some movement, and I think I'll be moving a little bit too. And Jose, you have to tell me if my voice is becoming too soft if I move away. Just say louder, but otherwise, I invite you all to stand.
Ok, entonces él va a guiarnos, somos 10, nos invita a que nos paremos. Yo le voy a dar que diga más alta si su voz no se escucha. El resto tiene que silenciar, por favor, si no están silenciados. Pues va a empezar con una experiencia de movimiento.
And I've been talking a lot.
He hablado bastante.
You've been, I hope, listening a lot.
Pero ahí está escuchando.
So what I'd like you to do is just release it all. Relax yourself. Release your breath.
Suelten su respiración, relájense, suelten la respiración.
Just let your breath go.
Dejen la respiración.
Let it all go, all this talking and thinking. And
Que se vaya todo este hablar y pensar.
As hard as you can. So go. So just let the air come back. You don't have to take a breath. If you release your breath, it will come back to you.
Y sueltan el aire va a volver a ustedes también. Suelten, vuelve el aire a ustedes.
And have a sense of the air being released and coming back, giving and taking with the air around us. You're always in the world with your breath.
Siempre están en el mundo con su respiración y tengan esta sensación de soltar el aire y volverlo a recibir.
And feel your feet on the ground.
Y sientan
Feel your
sus
feet on the ground in the house or the apartment where you live, and feel the way the ground can hold you and support you.
Sientan cómo el piso donde estén, en su casa, en su piso, en su departamento, las sostiene.
Sometimes we feel like we're alone and we don't have any support, but the earth will always support you.
Algunas veces sentimos que estamos solos, pero la tierra siempre nos va a dar soporte.
The air is coming in, the air is going out, inspiration and expiration.
El aire entra, el aire sale, inspiración, expiración.
And the ground is holding and supporting your body.
Y la tierra soporta su cuerpo.
And in your body, your heart, put your hand on your heart. You can, if you will, you can feel your heart beating. You know it's beating, even if you can't feel it. And it's warming your body.
Y si pueden, pongan su mano en el corazón y sientan cómo su corazón está latiendo, cómo su corazón está calentando su cuerpo. Sientan el latido de su corazón.
It's warming your body. When your heart fails, your body becomes cold.
Está calentando su cuerpo. Cuando el corazón falla, su cuerpo se enfría.
So the air is coming in, the earth is supporting you, your heart is warming you, and it's pushing blood through all the parts of your body. All the liquid, all the water that blood is going into your body. All the elements are in your body and in your relationship to the world.
Entonces están inspirando, están respirando, están siendo sostenidos por la tierra, están conectados con su latido les está dando calor, su latido permite que su sangre recorra por todo su cuerpo con todos los elementos existentes.
And reach up to the world, reach up to the sky above you, through the walls of the building that you're in.
Traten de llegar hacia el cielo, traten de llegar al cielo, atravesando el techo en donde están, y traten de llegar hacia el cielo.
And have a sense of reaching for something, looking, longing, desiring something just beyond your reach.
Y simplemente tratando de alcanzar algo, anhelando algo, imaginando algo que quieren alcanzar, como ese anhelo de llegar hacia algo, de alcanzar algo.
And when you're tired of reaching, you can let it go and just drop over. Let your body hang down.
Alcanzar, obtener algo, ya suéltenlo y déjenlo ir hacia abajo.
With your knees bent and your head hanging, not holding it up.
Y con sus rodillas dobladas y su cabeza colgando.
And when you come up, take your time and come up from the bottom vertebra first with your head coming last.
Y vayan subiendo poco a poco,
Very
vértebra
slowly.
por vértebra, muy despacio,
Lentamente.
muy lentamente, vértebra por vértebra, y que lo último que suba sea su cabeza.
Yeah, very good, very good. You get a prize for being the slowest one.
Hay un,
Usually we want to be the quickest.
un premio para ser el que es más lento en subir.
Let's try that again and finding the pleasure in being able to move your body and to reach for what you're reaching for. Whether it's love or art or work or salvation, I don't know, but whatever it is, reach for it.
Y volvemos a encontrar ese placer de alcanzar lo que querramos, será placer, será paz, que es lo que sea, encontremos un placer en seguir tratando de alcanzar algo.
And be flexible in the way that you reach. Find the pleasure in it.
Encuentren el placer en tratar de alcanzar eso que quieren, aquello que anhelan.
And then again, when you're tired of reaching, just let it go. Drop down.
Y bueno, y cuando se cansen de estar alcanzando, logrando algo, vuelvan a ir hacia abajo. Suéltenlo y vuelvan a ir hacia abajo.
Bend your knees so you don't hurt your back.
Doblen sus rodillas para que no hieran su espalda.
And let your head hang.
Y que su cabeza cuelgue.
Breathe.
Respiren.
Release your breath.
Suelten su respiración.
Coming up, when you're coming up, not now, but whenever you're ready, come up really slowly from your bottom vertebra with your head coming last.
Lentamente, cuando suban lentamente de vértebra por vértebra y que lo último que suba sea su cabeza.
Now I'd like us to move around the room. To move around the room that you're in any way that gives you pleasure, being aware of your breath coming in and going out, of the floor, the earth holding you, your heart beating, sending blood through your body. All the elements are there inside you and moving through the room. So you're not just in one space, but you're moving all over.
Ahora queremos que caminen por el cuarto en donde están. Que caminen por el cuarto
José, ¿entiendes?
en donde están, sí, conscientes de su respiración, de su inhalación, de su exhalación, del latido de su corazón, de cómo en este latido de su corazón hay un fluir de todos los elementos que están dentro de ustedes. Entonces exploren y caminen por el cuarto en donde están y encuentren placer al hacer esto.
And as you're moving, be aware that you're moving in the world. You are part of the world, moving in the world.
Y mientras caminan por el cuarto, son parte del mundo. Son ustedes moviéndose en el mundo.
And have a sense of that world that you are part of.
Hagan sentido del mundo del cual son parte ustedes. Ustedes son parte de ese mundo.
And as you're moving, see if you can ask the world, what are you calling to me? What are you asking me? What is your call to me? What is the world saying to you right now? What is it asking for?
Y mientras van caminando por el cuarto, vayan preguntándose, ¿el mundo qué quiere de mí? ¿El mundo qué pide de mí? ¿Qué es lo que el mundo me está preguntando a mí? ¿Qué quiere de mí? Mientras caminan por el cuarto, vayan preguntándose eso.
And imagine that if the world could call to you, what would it say? How would it call?
Imaginen, mientras caminan, que el mundo las está llamando. ¿Qué les diría? ¿Cuál sería ese llamado del mundo hacia ustedes?
And take a few minutes to explore that. Let it come.
Tómense algunos minutos para explorar qué es lo que el mundo quiere de ustedes.
And when you have a sense of that, take your time. It may take a little bit of time to find it. But when you have a sense of how the world is calling to you, see how you respond. What is your answer to the world? It's call and response. How can you respond to the call of the world?
Tómense un tiempo, puede que demore un tiempo en poder escuchar lo que el mundo les está pidiendo a ustedes, cuál es el llamado del mundo hacia ustedes, pero una vez que escuchen ese llamado del mundo hacia ustedes, ustedes también pueden responder ese llamado. ¿Cuál sería la respuesta que ustedes le darían al mundo? ¿Cuál sería la respuesta de ustedes al llamado que el mundo les está haciendo? Es call and response, respuesta y llamado. Llamado y respuesta.
And when you're ready, then find a piece of paper and do some writing about what has come to you.
Entonces, cuando terminen, encuentren un lápiz y un papel y escriban sobre lo que ha surgido de esta experiencia de movimiento del llamado y respuesta al mundo.
So we'll take a few minutes for this. If you haven't found it yet, keep working for it. Listening.
Entonces, nos vamos a dar unos minutos para esto. Si todavía no han encontrado, sigan trabajando en eso. Escuchen.
We're going to send you off into a room with 1 or 2 other people
Entonces, vamos a dividirnos en pequeños
to
rooms
share what you discovered from this movement exploration.
para que puedan compartir lo que han descubierto en esta pequeña exploración de movimiento.
And to just share with each other for how long? Let's see.
10 minutes, you think?
10 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Por 10 minutos van a ir a pequeños grupos para compartir lo que se dio en esta exploración de una manera aleatoria. Groups of 2 or 3, Ellen.
Well, there's only 10, so it would have to be, well, pairs. If there's enough for just pairs, that's great. Yeah.
Ok, entonces lo vamos a dividir en parejas de manera aleatoria para que puedan compartir la experiencia. Voy a crear los estos. Un segundito, por favor.
You might also think about what sensations or feelings came up for you, what images, and what thoughts came for you.
Claro, entonces también piensen en esta experiencia, qué imágenes vinieron, qué pensamientos vinieron, qué emociones vinieron en la experiencia que hicieron.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I have created
Are
the
we
room.
ready to go?
¿Listos?
Okay.
Sí, ok, entonces tienen que aceptar.
¿Listos?
Tienen que
Bye
aceptar.
bye.
10 minutos.
See you
You
as you disappear into the air.
into space, cyberspace.
Yeah, I don't know where they go. It's amazing. Two more are coming. Yeah.
Dos más.
Yeah.
Sí.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'd like now is to hear from each person what the world was calling to you and what your response was.
Entonces lo que nos gustaría ahora es escuchar de cada persona es cuál ha sido el llamado que el mundo ha tenido a ustedes y cuál ha sido su respuesta.
And see if you can do it in just 2 sentences, 1 sentence each.
Yeah, so take a minute to formulate the sentences.
Yeah.
Entonces, y vean si lo pueden hacer en solamente 2 oraciones, una para cada uno. Es decir, una oración para cuál ha sido el llamado que el mundo tiene a ustedes y cuál es la respuesta que ustedes le dan a ese llamado. A ver, tienen ahora un minuto para poder escribirlo, o bueno, tenerlo claro porque lo van a compartir con el grupo.
The order that my screen has. And if you could just give us these 2 sentences, you don't have to talk about it or give a background or anything. Just let us hear them and we can take them all in.
Ok, entonces él los va a llamar en el orden de su ordenador para que le puedan solamente decir estas 2 oraciones, ¿no? No tienen que explicarlo, solamente dicen estas 2 oraciones.
Okay, begin with Fernando.
Fernando.
Bueno, yo escribí frente a la sindemia capitalista, más generosidad y más solidaridad.
Okay, Félix.
Explorador del 2021. Más música, helados, café y otra vez helados.
Judith.
El llamado es a, bueno, contribuir con espacios o proyectos comunitarios donde distintos seres puedan florecer, y seres como animales, plantas, niños, mujeres. Y la respuesta es reconfirmar que estoy en el camino, ¿no? Que implica que me acabo de mudar a una comunidad y poder desarrollar esas capacidades de la gente y también en beneficio de las personas y animales, ¿no?
Yeah, for her is to respond, no? The call is to respond to the call of multiple beings, no? And not only humans, no? But also animals and plants to respond to these beings, no? And she's already in the path of doing, because she has just moved from Lima to Cusco, no? In a community where she's doing that.
Great. Thank you.
Jabba.
Es sé una inspiración, be an inspiration. Y la respuesta, ámate, ama, respira, sé paciente, sánate y transfórmate.
Daniela.
Bueno, el universo me pidió 3 cosas, que es volver a estar en contacto con los ciclos naturales. La segunda, alimentarme de placer y alegría y compartir mi nueva visión para el mundo. Y mi respuesta fue bailarle a todas las plantas que tengo en la casa y conectar con mi visión interior.
Sí.
Gracias.
Annabelle.
Bueno, acción a través del arte, a través del movimiento, bueno, si a través del amor yo puedo accionar esto, bueno, no sé, un poco como un collage con texturas y...
Sí.
Muy bien.
Okay, Medalid.
Haz lo que tú estás imaginando, haz tu proyecto. Yo he respondido, ¿cómo? Y la respuesta ha sido, con magia. Llama a tus aliados. Ellos van a ayudar. Y yo he dicho sí.
Miriam.
El mundo me llamó al compromiso, a seguir, a crear con otros, a la transformación, a que la basura pueda ser un buen fermento donde la belleza surja. Y mi respuesta es, ¿por qué no dejar el botiquín de emergencia y pasar al botiquín para la vida desde TAE?
Diana.
Ok, con la llamada ser y hacer infinidad, y respondí con movimiento humanizado en libertad. ¿Con qué? Con todo lo que es ser niño interior.
Okay, so when I was a baby of about probably 7 or 8 months old, I spent my first summer living with my family by the ocean. And then every summer from then on in my childhood, adolescence, and even now I have a place in the United States near the ocean. So when I was first sleeping by the ocean, I was sleeping in a house that was across the street from a very rocky coast, a very rocky coastline. And every day, every night, there was a rhythm that I was hearing from the ocean. I never thought about how important this rhythm became to me until very recently. So the rhythm was that the waves would come up, crash against the rocks, make a very strong pa sound, and then when the wave pulled back, it would go over small rocks, tiny rocks, some of them, and it would make a kind of a tick, 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 tick sound. So it was pash and tick, 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 pash and tick, 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 tick. So, José.
Ya, ok. Entonces, desde entonces, cuando ella era una bebé, ¿no? 7 meses más o menos, pasó su primer verano viviendo cerca al mar. Desde entonces, durante su niñez y su adolescencia, estaban cerca al mar, ¿no? La pasaban cerca al mar. Y al dormir, inclusive ahora tiene un lugar en Estados Unidos cerca al mar, ¿no? Y al dormir, en las noches, ¿no? Dormía en una zona muy rocosa, ¿no? Y cada día y cada noche sentía un ritmo, ¿no? El ritmo que oía un ritmo que era un ritmo que no sabía lo importante que ha sido ese ritmo para ella hasta ahora, ¿no? Como las olas venían y chocaban con las rocas, hacían un sonido fuerte. Y luego cuando la ola regresaba, hacía un sonido de las pequeñas rocas. Entonces el sonido era el de, como ya lo dijo, ¿no? El de tish, con la ola fuerte, y después, ¿no? El de regreso de la ola con las piedritas pequeñas.
So
I wonder if you need to translate out loud, because you know, it's going slowly, and I see on the chat, it's very
I'm
clear.
going to ask, ¿quieren que traduzca tanto en el chat como hablado o solo en el chat está bien?
yeah, which is better for you?
¿Alguien necesita que yo hable o solamente está bien que lo traduzca en el chat? ¿Está bien como solo en el chat?
Por
¿Sí?
favor, no, yo preferiría que, sí, por favor, si
Okay.
la pueden. Por favor.
Okay.
Gracias.
Okay. So I think that this rhythm of back and forth of the tide and the ocean coming in and going out came into my body as a kind of a soothing rhythm, helping me to fall asleep and to be relaxed as an infant. I'm pretty sure of it, because every time I go to the beach now, it can be in the morning, I can lie down on the beach and listen. When I listen to the sound of the waves, I fall asleep immediately. And when I was in Saas-Fee in Switzerland, where the school is, we're in the very high Alps, and there's no possibility to have any contact with the ocean. So I put this some sounds of waves on my iPod, and every afternoon I would take a break from teaching and I would use this as a way to fall asleep, to relax, to soothe, to hold me. There was this feeling of being held by the ocean, by the landscape.
Entonces está hablando cómo está segura que ella desde niña esto le ayudaba, este ritmo le ayudaba a relajarse. Cada vez que va a la playa ahora me acuesto y cuando escucho ese sonido me duermo. Y cuando estaba en Saas-Fee en Suiza, en el EGS, estamos en los Alpes y ahí no hay la posibilidad de tener contacto con el mar. Entonces lo que hace es poner los sonidos de olas en su iPad y cada tarde que toma un break, esto realmente le ayuda a relajarse y a ser sostenida.
I was a painter as a child. I started painting when I was about 9 years old. And I took lessons, classes for many years. And in those classes, the painting that I did mainly was copying of images, copying of pictures. And then later, much later, I began to encounter expressive arts ways of painting, particularly in the studio of an arts therapist in Amsterdam, who encouraged us to paint with our whole bodies, that is, in movement. The rhythm of the ocean became part of my experience of painting, I think. And the forms that were beginning to emerge in my painting were always linked to the ocean, to the sea, especially to the edge of the water as it fills up on the beach and creates a line between the water and the sand, a line of usually foam between the water and the sand. And into my paintings came a lot of sea images, abstract, mostly abstract images of the sea, of the water, of and then imagining what could be under the sea, maybe some mysterious objects or treasures, or so it became, my paintings always went to the forms of landscape that were ocean and land, maybe sky meeting water or land meeting water. And so I started painting again, I think in the early 90s, through the inspiration of the expressive arts studio of this woman. Her name is Annette Brederoder. And in the book that Steve and I edited early on, it's called Foundations of Expressive Arts Therapy. There's an article in there by Annette. Shall I write her name?
Please.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll write it to Jose. You can copy.
Annette, no? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
I will write it.
It's an interesting article. You might want to look at it if you can read, if you read English. It's about a process of painting that has to do with putting things on and then removing them, layering and removing and layering and removing, which I also am interested in my paintings. I'm interested.
Yeah. En este artículo que ella está recomendando, que está en el libro de Fundamentos a las Artes Expresivas, hay un artículo de Annette Brederoder, ¿no? Escribe sobre esto que ella habla, ¿no? Sobre las capas, ¿no? Las capas en su...
Okay.
Donde ella dice que hay que hacer una capa y después deshacer la capa. Hacer una capa y deshacer la capa.
Okay. So I was painting for a number of years, and then a parallel call came to me from the world, you could say. And this call had to do with seeing images in the newspapers of refugees, of people traveling the earth, searching for home. And these images called out to me. I was clearly hearing a call to respond in some way to these images. And so I started to cut them out of the newspaper and to put them into my paintings, to paint around them or to paint with them as a focus, and to put them in this particular landscape that to me was a holding place, a place of support. Yeah, stop.
Yes, sí, entonces ella empezó a ser llamada por los artículos de periódico donde veía imágenes de refugiados. Y a partir de ello recortaba estas imágenes de refugiados y empezó a ponerlas en su pintura y las trataba de rodear con un landscape, con un paisaje que le diera un soporte, una contención a estas imágenes. I will continue then.
Right. So to put them in this landscape that always held me and gave me a sense of the rhythm of life, and to put these disturbing images into the landscape to see if there could possibly be a way that I could help hold this situation in my fantasy, of course. I'm not literally doing it, but I'm responding artistically to a situation. So I want to show you images from my paintings.
Entonces va a mostrar algunas de sus pinturas donde ella ha intentado siempre tratar de alguna manera en su imaginación poderles dar algo que sostenga, ¿no? Una calma a estas imágenes de refugiados, y las va a mostrar ahora.
And then I want to before I do that, I also want to talk about another project that I actually decided to go into the world and do a project that had something to do with refugees and arts. And this project, I won't talk about the whole history of the development of the project, but I started it about 5 years ago. And I go with a team of students from my training program into a public school where there is a special classroom for children who have been in migration for periods of time and have lost lots of schooling because of their migration. And we're called the art people. They named us the art people. And we go and we do projects with them. And I thought of showing you some of the work that the children have done, particularly around bringing the outside world inside the classroom. That is, objects from the outside. We've worked a lot with that theme of bringing the environment, really, you could say, into the classroom and aestheticizing it, or making it, bringing beauty into it. So I'm going to show you my paintings first and talk a little about that, and then I'll show you the work, just a little bit of the work that we've been doing with the kids over the last few years. Okay, so I want to just show this image first. Oops.
Mostrar la imagen primero.
Which is the beach,
La
of course,
playa.
where we go in the summers, where we walk almost every day.
Donde vamos en el verano y caminamos casi todos los días en verano por esta playa.
And so you can see this idea that I'm talking about of the edge of the water, meeting the shore.
Y así pueden ver esta imagen de digamos, el límite del mar que se acerca a la orilla.
It's not just an idea, it's a literal form that I am attracted to.
No es una idea, es realmente una forma literal de la cual ella es atraída.
And then the cliffs in the back of the beach, which are made out of clay.
Y luego el barranco, ¿no? El acantilado, ¿no? Que están hechos de adobe, ¿no? De arcilla.
This is the literal environment. And I could talk a lot about this environment because it's really going to disappear, I think, in a number of years because of climate change.
Y podría hablar mucho de este pequeño ambiente, y este ambiente va a desaparecer debido al cambio climático en algunos años.
This is one of my a very early painting.
Esta es una de mis pinturas primeras.
Which I always have this sense of what's above and what's below.
Siempre tengo una sensación de lo que está arriba y de lo que está abajo.
But it's more round forms, and it changes as I go along.
Son formas más redondas, va cambiando, ¿no? Ha ido cambiando.
This is a newer painting where I'm using a photograph in the painting.
Esta es una pintura más reciente y estoy utilizando una fotografía en la pintura.
It's a photograph of people facing forward, looking at something from a boat.
Es una pintura de personas buscando algo desde un bote.
And I took that photograph and multiplied it many times.
Tomé esa fotografía y la multipliqué muchas veces.
And what I added was a series of windows in the sky.
Lo que añadí fue una serie de ventanas en el cielo.
And then a possible roadway for them to come to.
y una posible ruta de la cual ellos pudieran salir,
another window to go through at the bottom,
otra ventana de la cual pudieran salir en el abajo,
and then some treasures that they could pick up on the way.
y luego algunos tesoros que ellos podrían tomar en su camino.
So how can this landscape hold them as they search for something? And I call this one, where are we going?
Llamé a esta ¿dónde estamos? Entonces ella ha generado un paisaje que pueda sostenerlos de alguna manera en su camino.
This is another photograph that I worked with of people traveling in a line.
Esta es otra donde escogí una fotografía de personas caminando en línea.
And again, I copied it many times and put it together.
La saqué varios duplicados y la puse junta.
And at some point, ladders started to appear in my work.
En algún momento las escaleras empezaron a aparecer en mi trabajo.
And so I offer them the possibility of a ladder to get down into the landscape, to get over the fence and free.
Entonces ofrecí una escalera que les pudiera atravesar la reja, ¿no? y estar libres.
So offering them some kind of help in this situation.
Ofreciendo algún tipo de ayuda en esta situación.
Again, in my fantasy, in my imagination.
Otra vez en mi fantasía e imaginación.
Here's a close-up of the photograph.
Un foco de la fotografía.
This is another iteration of the same photograph you saw before.
Esta es otra perspectiva.
Can you go back one?
Back?
Yeah, just so we can look at it a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
So you reproduced the image on the left and the right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's probably three different ones put together.
Yeah.
Repite la fotografía, ¿no?
And this one, a ladder appears again.
Aquí otra escalera aparece.
So they could possibly climb down from the boat and go down the Golden Road.
Para que posiblemente puedan salir del barco en esa escalera y llegar a un camino dorado.
Here's another one of the line of people traveling.
Aquí otra persona caminando en línea.
This is another one of the line of people traveling in a much more massive landscape.
Esta es otra, pero hay un paisaje más amplio, ¿no? Más grande que lo rodea.
And different possibilities for being held. The fertile earth, the ocean. Yeah, go ahead.
Diferentes posibilidades para ser sostenidos, ¿no? El campo fértil.
The ocean.
El océano.
And the mountains.
Las montañas que lo sostienen.
This is a photograph that I'm working with now.
Esta es una fotografía con la cual estoy trabajando ahora.
And you can see it's two together.
Son dos juntas.
And it's obviously people in a boat, but what's fascinating to me is you can't even see the boat.
Es obviamente personas en un barco, pero lo que me fascina es que ni siquiera se puede ver el barco.
So for me, it emphasizes the vulnerability of these people.
Para mí lo que enfatiza la foto es la vulnerabilidad de estas personas.
And this is what I did with it.
Y esto es lo que hice.
This is a very large painting.
Es una pintura más amplia, más larga.
And the ocean is pretty rough.
Y el océano el mar está bastante bravo, picado.
So there's a window that they could jump out to.
Hay una ventana de la cual pueden saltar.
Or a ladder that goes down to a warming fire.
O una escalera a la cual pueden ir a un fuego que calienta.
And I should say that some of this is I have ideas about, but some things just emerge. And the fire was something that just emerged as I was scraping away the brown paint at the bottom of the piece.
Y estas formas van surgiendo, ¿no? Y el fuego surgió cuando estaba pintando con el marrón, fue que emergió esta idea del fuego.
Okay, so those are my paintings that I want to show you. Then I want to show you some of the work from the children.
Quiero mostrarles ahora, esas fueron mis pinturas, ahora quiero mostrarles el trabajo con los niños que he estado trabajando también.
So this is a collage of other work that we did over the course of the year that one child put together in a particular way.
Es un collage que un niño ha puesto diferentes objetos a lo largo de un año aquí.
So we went outside and collected things like leaves, but also bits of paper and garbage.
Entonces es lo que iba recolectando afuera, como hojas, pero también papeles y basura.
And then there were things in the classroom and material that we used also to create these. The subject of this was my world.
El tema de estas instalaciones era mi mundo, ¿no? Y combinan objetos de afuera con lo que tenían en el salón de clases.
Okay, this was an interesting thing that one day the teacher brought into the classroom. We asked her to do this, a branch from a tree.
Esto es interesante, esto es lo que una vez un profesor trajo una rama de un árbol.
And it was huge. Like I didn't expect her to bring such a big thing into the classroom.
Era gigante.
And I've been working with this particular teacher for over the 5 years, and she and I really have a very good relationship of working together.
Yo he venido trabajando con esta profesora durante muchos años y teníamos una buena relación de trabajo.
So we had the idea with the kids together of decorating this branch in some way.
La idea de decorar junto con los niños la rama.
Of hanging things from it, of wrapping it. And we worked on it over a period of maybe a month.
Y así, decorarla, envolverle cosas, colgarle cosas, y trabajamos con esta rama durante un periodo de un mes.
So this is a video. Do you hear sound?
No.
No. Okay. So I'm gonna do this again and share my sound because I think it's part of it. It's really important to hear the sound.
The phone?
Did you hear it?
Oh, that thing. Something I gave the teachers to try out for the classroom. You can look at it through your phone, and when you hold it behind it, it makes some hum. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Alan. That was awesome again today. I really appreciate it. What a difference. Yes, of course you can. Yeah, no, that turned out really, really well. What are you going to do? May I please? Yes, you may, but what are you going to do?
I will color.
I can show you. That turned out really well.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want one.
Yeah.
It's fun, then. Let's just stay. Yeah.
You're welcome to stay too if you want. Ema?
I want to do these. I think that's all because these all belong to Mr. T.
I told them just the silver ones.
One of the teachers loved this branch so much that he made a stand for it. You can see it. It's holding it up on both sides. He made the stand out of wood.
Entonces una de las profesores realmente le encantó tanto esta obra que hizo como un soporte, ¿no? Para que pudiera estar ahí, ¿no? Ahí se ve el soporte que tiene, ¿no?
Okay. So what I would just say in conclusion, because we're running out of time, is that I think that it's the call and response moment.
Como conclusión, quiero decir, ya nos estamos yendo fuera de tiempo, hay un momento de llamado y respuesta, ¿no?
But also I would introduce the idea of holding, and shaping.
Y quiero introducir la idea de sostener y moldear.
So both those rhythms are I think, in my work, holding and shaping, the call and response.
Entonces, ambos están en mi trabajo, ¿no? Tanto el sostener como el moldear y como el llamado y respuesta.
Okay, Steve.
I think this is very important what you're saying, because in the therapeutic relationship, the patient or the client has to feel held by the therapy and by the therapist. And there's been a lot of emphasis in psychotherapy lately about holding, importance of holding, going back to the work of Winnicott, who talked a lot about this. The baby needs to feel held in order for the adult to feel that they have a secure base in the world. But what also has to happen is that the patient or the client has to find a way to respond and to shape their reality. Once you feel held, you can then move into the world and shape it. The problem that I'm thinking about right now is that a lot of us don't feel held by the world anymore. We feel that we're destroying this world.
Steve, stop.
Yeah.
Entonces, lo que él habla es lo importante que tiene esto en terapia, ¿no? Es decir, tanto desde Winnicott, que lo plantea la importancia de que la terapia y el terapeuta puedan sostener, ¿no? al cliente. Y una vez que el cliente se siente sostenido, va a tener la posibilidad de encontrar su manera de responder, ¿no? Al mundo y a la realidad, ¿no? Una vez que se siente sostenido, va a poder responder, ¿no? El tema actualmente es que el mundo no nos está sosteniendo.
So that means we have a very shaky ground to work from, and which, if you look back at human history, it's not that unusual. And yet people continue to try to shape their world, even in the worst situations. Here are these children from Syria that Ellen's working with, many of them from Syria, or they're Roma children, which is what you call in Spanish, Gitanos. And they don't have a world that holds them, and yet they're able to make something. So even on shaky ground, we can shape.
Yes.
Entonces, Ellen estaba trabajando con niños, bueno, de Siria, niños que llamaríamos gitanos, ¿no? Ellos no tienen un mundo que los sostenga, ¿no? El mundo está movido, ¿no? Y a pesar de esa realidad terrible, ¿no? Se puede como que crear algo que los sostenga.
And I would just add that my experience of working with these children is that they get a great deal of nourishment from this art making work that we've done with them.
Y ella añadiría que estos niños se sienten muy nutridos por el trabajo de arte, los nutre el trabajo de arte que hacen.
And I've seen how the development of their aesthetic eye and their imaginations has really helped them be able to learn.
Y he notado cómo su desarrollo de la estética, ¿no?
Y de imaginación.
Y de la imaginación los ha ayudado, los ayuda, ¿no? A aprender.
So I think they love doing this because they feel that it's actually useful for them in many ways.
Les es útil, aman hacer esto porque les es útil, de muchas maneras.
And also the teacher notes other things, like they are more social when they're doing things with the arts. Now, right now, of course, they're all in their own homes. We're still doing this online. We're still going in and working with the kids every week. We just did it yesterday. We did work with them, even though they're all in their own houses on computers.
Claro, pese a que están en sus computadoras, en sus casas, lo siguen haciendo, ¿no? Y para los profesores les es útil, ¿no? Pero lo siguen haciendo online.
And it helps them stay connected to the arts and to each other.
Les ayuda a estar conectados a las artes y a ellos mismos.
Yeah. So, Steve, I want to confer with you right now.
Well, we have to let go of what we planned.
Oh, absolutely. And what I was thinking is maybe now we could just have a little bit of discussion or questions.
Well, I just want to do one thing before we do that.
Okay.
Which is in the work in Lima, I asked the students, what the world was around them that they were experiencing. And many of them said that the world they saw was garbage, basura.
Le preguntó a los alumnos en Perú, en Lima, ¿no? En la última clase, ¿qué veían alrededor de su mundo, ¿no? Y en Lima, ¿qué veían? Y muchos contestaron basura, ¿no?
And my response to that came in the form of a poem.
Y mi respuesta vino en respuesta a un poema, ¿no? A eso.
I'm going to say the poem in English, and then I'm going to put it in the chat in Spanish. It was translated in the class. But I also want to try to say the Spanish.
Va a decir el poema en inglés, lo va a poner en castellano, la traducción, pero también lo va a querer leer en castellano él.
Okay. So the poem in English is called Longing for Beauty. If all we see is garbage, are we garbage too? Maybe you can translate just when I pause. Jose.
Todo lo que vemos es basura. ¿Somos también basura?
Who looks at us wishing obliteration?
Can you repeat?
Who looks at us wishing obliteration, wanting to obliterate us?
I'm going to find the translation that you sent me. Please read it in
Yeah.
I'm going to now send the translation.
Well, there it is. He's got it. It's right there. He just put it in.
To everybody.
Okay.
Okay, great.
You don't need to translate. Let me just read it in English again. And then I do want to read it in Spanish. I'm attached to it. Longing for beauty. If all we see is garbage, are we garbage too? Who looks at us wishing obliteration? And the beauty we long for, surely it exists before our eyes. Turn and see. It is blooming in the waste. I hold out my hand, the empty palm, a testament to what will come again. Anhelando belleza. Si todo lo que vemos es basura, ¿somos basura también? ¿Quién nos mira deseando nuestra erradicación? Seguramente.
You left out a line. Y a belleza que anhelamos.
Y a belleza que anhelamos. Seguramente existe delante de nuestros ojos. Gira y mira. Está floreciendo en los desperdicios. Tiendo mi mano, la palma vacía, un testimonio de lo que vendrá una vez más. Someone, Jose, can you read it in good Spanish?
Anhelando belleza. Si todo lo que vemos es basura, ¿somos basura también? Nos mira deseando nuestra erradicación. Y la belleza que anhelamos seguramente existe delante de nuestros ojos. Gira y mira. Está floreciendo en los desperdicios. Tiendo mi mano. La palma vacía, un testimonio de lo que vendrá una vez más.
I think I just want to leave it open for any comments.
Yeah. Let's just take the last few minutes.
Tenemos algunos minutos más de ustedes, ¿no? Comentarios, preguntas. Abierto. Sí, Judith.
Voy a tratar de hablar en inglés, pero ahí voy. I think that we can create beauty in waste management too. I used to work in waste management for the state, like waste management, but then I participate with a group of women that work with the waste, and we can create beauty to working with them. So we did is create spaces where she can work with problems of violence, work with management in a way of justice. They can sell the waste in various places, and they can be in the society working with a lot of companies or and people too, and people that lives in the cities, that they can see, in order they can see them like people, no? So they can separate their waste and give it clean, I don't know, plastics and everything, but they can see them like people, like they were working. It's the work, not anymore like I don't know how to say, just they can see them like people that are working, and then they can start to like working as a group of women, and they can be more sociable, more making a lot of spaces where they can talk about their experiences and work as a group, and make better chances to live in the society. I don't know how my English is, but I think I got the idea.
It makes me think of a movie, a documentary by the Brazilian artist Vic Muniz. It's called Wasteland. Have you seen it?
Has anyone seen it? Raise your hand if you've seen it.
Have you seen it?
De Vic Muñoz, Wasteland.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Jose, can you send that information to everybody, how they can get that movie?
Well, it's, they can Google it and find it.
Google pueden encontrar este documental que está recomendando.
Yeah. I won't go in, there's no time to go into it, but let's hear from other people.
It's a very important movie about making beauty
out of garbage. Yeah, exactly.
Cómo hacer belleza de la basura, ¿no?
Anyone else have a comment or anything you'd like to say before we end?
Antes de terminar, ¿alguien más quiere decir algo, comentar algo, preguntar algo antes de terminar?
I'd like to hear 1 or 2 sentences from each person, really very short.
Okay.
Even though we go over. Is that okay, Jose, to go over?
Can we go over a few minutes? It's okay.
To leave, I understand, but
yeah.
Si alguien se tiene que ir, igual queda grabado, así que no hay problema. Dicen adiós.
Yeah, sure. If you have to go, yeah.
¿Quieren escuchar?
What do you want to take from this?
Yeah, what are you taking from this little short experience here with us?
Okay. Entonces va a ser una ronda de salida donde cada uno va a decir brevemente qué se llevan de esta pequeña experiencia juntos. Si se tienen que ir, bueno, se van, quedará grabado, pero para cerrar, 2 frases de qué se llevan de esta experiencia.
Let's give you a minute to think about it before we start.
Antes de empezar, ¿qué se llevan de esta pequeña experiencia? Si pueden decirlo en castellano o en inglés, bien. Si no, yo traduzco al inglés.
Sí. So Steve, I'm going to
really short, corto.
I'm going to call names this time, okay? Okay. And maybe you'll make it up just when your name is called. You won't have time to think about it too much.
Le digan nomás cuando sean llamados, algo muy corto para despedirnos.
Okay. Yeah, Annabelle.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a little distracted.
I saw you have a little.
Here's my pajamas. My mom's screaming the whole. Anyway, very, very brief. I think well, lots of things to process. Like I think it's been a really great session. So thank you both of you for this. But I think the shaping and holding, like what you just mentioned, Ellen, I think, yeah, it's getting me to think also. I mean, there are so many causes I feel committed to that also just nowadays with this pandemic kind of, you know, this never ending sort of scenario where you're just, everything you read is about the pandemic. It's true that I think to myself, okay, what is it actually, it's bringing up, okay, what is it I've always been committed to, you know? And what is it I need to keep working on actively? And what is it I want to shape? You know, it's just sort of bringing in this kind of action word. Like, I feel a lot of, yeah, like it's getting quite passive, you know, in the way that I'm taking in news. And there's also this sort of, you know, incapacity to act that's being kind of created by society and everything that's around me. So I think through art, obviously, how can I shape and hold these things that I've always, you know, held dear? And yeah, so that's been useful to hear that again. Yeah, okay, that's it.
Okay. Daniela?
One of the most impactful realizations that I've had, like by listening to Ellen especially, is that there are many more ways that are allowed that are possible for creating and for making art than I thought were possible, and that responding to the environment in a creative way can be much more powerful than doing it through sacrifice or political action, or it can be like really much more powerful than I thought was possible. So yeah, thank you so much.
Giada.
Hi. I've got a lot of questions now, and that usually I wrote to Judith, but yes, for example, because about how art can transform, because I lived in my life the transformation, a very big transformation, thanks to art, because I suddenly started to paint 5 years ago, and it was really 5 years intense transformation, and wow, a very special journey. But then when people ask me something about this, I'm not able to explain what really happened. So but maybe in the exercise of before I found an answer, because the answer was be patient, be an inspiration, and be patient, because we also have maybe to respect the process of another person that maybe in that moment cannot understand what I'm trying to explain, and maybe has to experience this. And another thing about creation and distraction, when you were talking about the article of Annette, I think, about doing put and take off layer, and I was thinking about in these last months I was thinking about the process of auto-distraction. So toxic, how can I explain, something that we do to auto-sabotage ourselves. And I was thinking in this last month how to transform this auto-sabotage in an art form. So with the creation and distraction, but in an artistic form.
Yes.
So this was like a suggestion to put and take off layers.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Miriam.
Me llevo el agradecimiento ante todo porque nos habéis compartido vuestros tesoros.
I'm grateful because you have shared your treasures with us.
Me llevo belleza, inspiración, esperanza,
hope,
confianza y la confirmación de la potencia del arte, que el arte sostiene la vida.
And the confidence of the power of art, that art holds life.
y el desafío de convertir la basura en belleza y también el desafío de potenciar mis tesoros.
And the challenge of turning garbage into beauty, and also the challenge of really validating my treasure.
Ajá. Gracias. Judith.
Siempre podemos crear belleza, sobre todo cuando es en beneficio de los demás, ¿no? Sean niños, mujeres, hombres, animales y cualquier otro ser de la naturaleza. Thank you.
Gracias. Felix.
Reaffirmed the power of the arts for the transformation in general. En español, reafirmo el poder de las artes para la transformación en general. Como decía Judith, en general de todos. Gracias.
Gracias. Gracias. Fernando.
Bueno, al día de hoy, digamos, esta experiencia de reunirnos todos nosotros, que de alguna manera muchos de nosotros hacemos arte o intentamos encontrar esa cosa tan huidiza de la belleza, que tratamos de definirlo. Yo creo que lo tomo como hacer el arte como una forma de resistencia. La resistencia frente a este mundo que cada vez pareciera como que se configura una forma tan dramática de inhumanidad. Y creo que en el arte es donde nos podemos encontrar juntos con aquellos hombres que pintaron aquellos bisontes en Altamira, en Lascaux y todos esos lugares maravillosos. Eso me pone en la situación, como decía, de que es la manera de seguir vivos. Hacer arte es estar vivo.
Okay.
Gracias. Juliana.
Mucho agradecimiento por lo compartido por Helen. Que me llevo a un recuerdo vivo, que justo lo tengo acá, que me lleva a una conexión conmigo, con el otro, con el universo y con una conexión en el aquí, en el ayer y con las posibilidades del mañana.
Okay.
Okay, there are two announcements I want to make. I'll try to be brief. One is that we have a series of symposiums sponsored by the European Graduate School. It's called the Poesis Symposiums. And there is one on eco-poesis, expressive arts in the environment, on January 25th at 6 o'clock your time. And Jose will send you the information. We have it in a...
Quiere hacer dos anuncios cortos. Uno es que va a haber un pequeño simposio libre para todos sobre ecopoiesis. Y yo les voy a enviar el link. Va a ser a las 6 de la tarde. Les mando el link para que lo puedan asistir.
Vale.
And the second thing is that I have been the last couple of years the co-editor of a journal on ecology and the expressive arts. The journal is called Ecopoiesis.
Él es también el coeditor de una revista que se llama Ecopoiesis.
And it is an open access journal, which means you can see it online without paying anything.
Yes.
And
Online?
Yeah. Online, yeah. I just gave the online information.
Y es gratuita, abierta a todos, online.
Vale.
So I recommend, if you're interested, to look at that. It's in Russian and English, so you have to find the English version, I think.
Está en ruso.
Unless someone here speaks Russian, I don't know.
That's not
Tal vez alguien hable ruso.
any Russians? I'm always Russian.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I want to say what a pleasure it is to be with you. I feel like there's so much more that you can do, that we can do, and I encourage you to do it. Take it into the world.
Ha sido un placer haber estado con ustedes y noto que lleven al mundo lo que están haciendo.
Thank you for your attention to this difficult situation that we're in, and let's see what we can, as artists, as imaginative people, make with what we've got.
Gracias por su atención. Estamos viviendo momentos muy difíciles, pero veamos qué podemos hacer como artistas, como personas imaginativas frente a lo que estamos viviendo.
Sí. Adiós. Hasta la
Gracias. Adiós,
hasta la
Thank you.
hasta la-
Gracias. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Próxima.
Next week.
A la próxima. Yeah.